Now everybody thinks that if disaster strikes or if the apocalypse comes, that the way they're gonna go down is in a blaze of glory against a large group of steampunk cannibals, fighting off packs of mutated feral dogs, or maybe just taking one for the team and going out kamikaze style against one of Boston Dynamics' soon-to-be man-hunting robots. But the fact of the matter is, you're probably going to die from one of the following: exposure, malnutrition, waterborne pathogens, disease, and plain old dehydration. Really boring stuff. Now in the first days of SHTF, it's going to become blisteringly apparent how vital water is when you turn your tap on and nothing comes out. After all, the body is 60 to 80% water, and approximately 3.5 million people die of waterborne illnesses annually around the world. That number will likely be magnified many times over in the absence of a fully functioning waterworks system. In today's video, we're going to talk about 10 different ways you can filter or purify water so you can save yourself to go to war with the machines. Let's get to it. Now there's a myriad of ways to collect and store water, but that's not what we're going to talk about in this video. I've done videos on that in the past that you can see here. There are plenty of storage systems: water barrels, waterful barrels, water bobs, water bricks, and good old 5-gallon jugs. But here are 10 different ways that you can make that water drinkable. Now we should first talk about the difference between water filtration and purification. The difference is the following. A water filter is designed to remove waterborne protozoa and bacteria, but not viruses. Now water purification, on the other hand, and some more advanced methods that we're going to talk about, can actually remove all of those things and even chemicals which could be toxic to your system. Now the first method is boiling. Now as a general rule of thumb, 5 to 10 minutes of boiling is going to kill most organisms. If you want to err on the side of caution, go for 10 minutes. Now the problem with this tried and true and historically popular approach is that the fuel to boil that water may well be in short supply, so you're likely going to have to improvise. There's a couple ways that you can bring water to a boil using solar energy from the sun. So long as you have the sun, you potentially have an infinite source of energy to boil water at your disposal. You can use parabolic mirrors or solar cookers as shown here to concentrate the sun's energy into a focal point that's going to generate enough heat to either cook, boil water, or even light things on fire. This is going to be fine if you live in a sunny location. If you don't, it's going to require a combustible fuel source. Oftentimes this is going to take some form of liquid or gas fuel, but in many cases you're going to be burning wood fuel. The problem with wood is it requires a lot of energy to collect, and unless you have the appropriate setup, it's also going to come with its fair share of safety issues, not counting security issues if we're talking about a full-blown Mad Max situation here. The best way to discreetly boil water is always going to be with a parabolic solar cooker. More information about that in the description section. The next method, and probably the easiest if you have a lot of sunlight at your disposal, is going to be solar disinfection. Now solar disinfection combines thermal and ultraviolet radiation, and it has been shown to be effective in eliminating various micropathogens and reduce morbidity associated with drinking bad water. Now what this essentially amounts to is either using a clear, transparent bottle or a bag, putting your water in that bag and exposing it to sunlight for 6 to 12 hours. The longer, the better. That ultraviolet light is going to kill all the bacteria and viruses within that water. Now, it's not going to get rid of the bad taste, and it's not going to get rid of the chemicals, but it's going to get rid of the stuff that's going to make you sick in the short term. Now, I've also demonstrated different products on this channel before that leverage ultraviolet technology to kill viruses and bacteria in a more controlled technological fashion. You can use tech like the Catadine Steripen to do the same thing. The Catadine Steripen is going to allow you to purify as much water as you have energy at your disposal. So you can charge the Steripen with a solar panel and use that energy to purify your water. And the great thing with the Steripen is it works a lot faster than solar disinfection. But in some cases, if the water is really murky, you may have to develop a pre-filtration system because the UV light is not going to be able to penetrate very murky water, and those viruses and bacteria may be able to hide from the light. So this works best on clear water. Now another method is to make a solar still. This basically uses the process of evaporation to purify the water, and this also works with salt water to get rid of the salt. You can get pre-made emergency solar still kits that are great for your seafaring watercraft. The downsides of this method, of course, is that it's going to be time consuming and it's not going to allow you to generate a significant amount of water unless you set up many solar stills. If you have nothing else at your disposal, you can make a filter from natural materials. However, it should be known that methods like this are not guaranteed to get rid of bacteria, viruses. And if I was making something like this out of a clear plastic bottle as shown here, I may be more apt to save that bottle to use it for solar disinfection as opposed to investing all the time and energy that it would take in order to make a system like this. But if you wanted to, you could make something like this, and the idea is that the top layers of small rocks and sand are going to get out the larger particulates, progressively going down to the smaller particulates, and then of course you can put charcoal in the bottom. And if you don't know, you can make charcoal with a fire and a metal can. I've demonstrated this on the channel before. It's not hard to do, but again, it takes energy and it's time consuming. So this method, in my opinion, is probably one of the worst that you can try to invest in if you are in a survival situation. But hey, if you got a lot of time on your hands and you got a lot of plastic bottles laying around and you can pair this with boiling and solar disinfection, then why not? Now, if you are one of the lucky ones who prepared ahead of time, you may be privy to something called microporous filtration or adsorptive filtration. Basically, these are your standard run-of-the-mill water filters. Oftentimes, these are hollow fiber membranes which will filter out bacteria and protozoa. Some really special filters like the MSR Guardian have pores that are actually 10 times smaller than these conventional hollow fiber membranes, and they can effectively filter out viruses. And unfortunately, there's a big demand and a big supply chain bottleneck with these things right now. We do happen to have a few kicking around at CanadianPreparedness.com, but they don't last long. You can also get brands like Lifestraw, Katadyn, Aquamira makes some great red line filtration systems that do use absorption, which essentially is similar to a filtration process, only the process they use actually acts as a magnet for chemicals as well. Now, myself personally, I'm not overly concerned about chemicals in a short-term disaster situation. The main things I'm worried about are filtering out the baddies: bacteria, protozoa, and viruses. You get rid of them, you're going to survive to see another day. One of the most popular water filter systems in the preparedness community has to be the Berkey water filtration system. This is a great set it and forget it gravity filter solution. They use a proprietary filtration technology in order to filter out bacteria, protozoa, viruses, and even chemicals. We've used one in our home every day for the last 4 years and could not be happier with it. Now, the next method of water purification is chemical treatment, okay? Using things like bleach, calcium hypochlorite, or even iodine in order to kill all the bad stuff in the water. For iodine, you add 5 drops of 2% tincture of iodine to each quart or liter of water that you are disinfecting. If that water is cloudy or colored, then you gotta add 10 drops of iodine. You let that sit for 30 minutes and that water is essentially good to go. May have a little bit of a nasty aftertaste, but it's better than dying. Now, you can also use bleach, but just remember that bleach loses its effectiveness after 6 months. There is a limited shelf life for bleach. Typically, if you have bleach, you can use this chart here to determine how much bleach you need in order to purify liters or gallons of water. One of the choice chemicals amongst preppers is going to be pool shock. Pool shock is something that you use in order to make bleach. And the best thing about pool shock is that it doesn't have the limited lifespan that bleach has. Pool shock will last decades if properly stored. Consider that just 1 pound bag of calcium hypochlorite, also known as pool shock, can disinfect up to 10,000 gallons of drinking water. That's enough water to basically provide one person with 5 to 10 years worth of drinking water, depending on how well they ration it. Now you want to get the pool shock that's minimum 65% calcium hypochlorite, just like this one here. Now this is pretty much guaranteed 99% of the time to kill bacteria and viruses. However, there are several types of protozoa that are going to be potentially resistant to this type of chemical disinfection. And if you are using chlorine to purify your drinking water too frequently, it can become toxic in your system if you're not careful in how you do it. So be sure, if you do plan on using this as your primary method of water purification, that you go and do more independent research on the topic. Now you can also actually make your own bleach. The same company that makes the MSN Guardian filter that I raved about earlier actually makes an electrolysis machine called the SE200 MSR chlorine maker. What this essentially allows you to do is make chlorine or bleach using water and salt. Salt is going to last forever, and so long as you have a modest amount of salt and water to use in this machine, you will never run out of clean drinking water. Basically how it works is electrolysis breaks down the sodium chloride, which is salt, into calcium hypochlorite, which when mixed with H2O creates bleach. You can then take 1/8 of a tablespoon of that bleach, as you would with normal household bleach, add that to 2 gallons of water in order to purify it. I've done an extensive review of this product on my channel before. I suggest you go and watch it if you want more information. Now there's also distillation contraptions that you can make. There's many videos on YouTube with different distillation contraptions which have millions of views, and they show you basically how to make seawater drinkable. Now this does require energy. Again, if you're able to concentrate the sun's light, you can leverage that with your distiller, or you can just boil the water, or just use the passive low energy of the sun to do the distillation process for you in the same way that you would a solar still. The idea with distillation is that you're bringing the water to a boil, so it's basically a solar still, but expedited. Now another thing I've demonstrated on this channel before is using a dehumidifier. So long as you have a dehumidifier machine, and so long as you live in an environment where there is humidity, which is most places on Earth, and so long as you have energy to power that dehumidifier, presuming that you have a solar system which is powering a battery pack from which you could run your dehumidifier on, you can essentially extract water from the air. Now, one downside of this method is that this water is going to be devoid of the naturally occurring minerals that your body needs in order to survive. And this can have the effect of actually taking minerals out of your body, and over time this can of course be very, very problematic. But so long as you have a way to supplement your vitamin and mineral consumption, this is not something you're going to have to worry about. But again, this dehumidifier idea is kind of a last ditch. I'm stuck in the desert, or I'm stuck in a place there where there's no drinking water whatsoever, but I happen to have a dehumidifier, I happen to have some sunlight and some energy at my disposal, so this is what I gotta do to survive. Now, if you do have to drink water without a filter, faster moving water is always better. The faster it's moving, the better. There are some misconceptions about drinking water from shallow, stagnant pools because of that solar disinfection effect. Some people say that if you drink water in a shallow, stagnant pool where the sunlight is battering down on it all day, that ultraviolet light is killing all those organisms and viruses. However, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be in that water where those viruses and parasites can hide from. If I had to choose between running water and stagnant, I personally would always go with running water. It's important to bear in mind that up until a couple hundred years ago, most people drank from rivers and lakes. Yes, there was some boiling of water that happened, and yes, there was some filtration systems for the aristocracy, but the average peasant just drank from the river, and their bodies were adapted to that. But an SHTF situation is certainly one in which you don't want to have to go through the rigors of adapting your body to drink ditch water if it can all be avoided. Now, one of the holy grails of water filtration is going to be reverse osmosis. However, this process does require a lot of energy. You can get these filters for your home. If you do have a solar setup and you have a reverse osmosis machine, which is reliable, then I guess you're set. A reverse osmosis membrane basically uses high pressure and very, very tightly woven microporous membranes in order to filter out everything from viruses, bacteria, heavy metals, herbicides, salts. It gets rid of everything. Now, I know we didn't talk too much about desalinators today, but Katadyn also does make a portable desalinator. It's special order only, but if you want one, you can reach me at CanadianPreparedness.com and maybe I can hook you up. These are very costly, and I would only recommend it if you are preparing to do combat with pirates in a Waterworld scenario. Let me know if you have any suggestions on water filtration or purification below. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you all for watching, and take care of yourselves. Canadian Prepper out. The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com. Your one-stop shop for premium, high-quality, brand-name products that have been tried and tested by myself and other YouTube gear reviewers. My subscribers save 10% off by using the coupon code SURVIVALPREPPER. All one word in all caps.